All right, it is January 29th, 2026, and it's our users meeting. And we have a lot to cover. There are several updates. We'll be looking at updates in reports, in Blue Cloud, in iSearch, and in Fetch. Some due dates. We've been having calamity days, right? So do you want to change those, or are you happy with your overdues just being a wreck right now? But you can get those fixed so they would be accurate. 2 library spotlights, and actually we're squeezing in a training spotlight that Lori told me about this morning. And collection maintenance. This is our big rock we're going to tackle today, and it is the weeding report. Learn about the CREW method, C-R-E-W, and MUSTIE Factors to help keep your collection healthy. Hopefully we'll have time talk about item statuses, because a few of these they can be a little misgiving if you don't understand them. So discard, holds, ILL, interlibrary loan. What is lost? Like, there's 3 different types of lost, and I've been asked, which one do you use? Or when do you use each one? When something is missing, a repair, shadow, and weeded. And I'm going to throw this out there just in case I don't get to weeded, because it's the very last slide. I like what InfoHio person just told me. What's the difference between discard and weeded? And he says, one starts with a D and one starts with a W. And I'm like, okay, message received. They pretty much mean the same thing. So I liked that. But here we are. Report updates. The circulation, overdues, and notices. So there was an issue, email setup. It was including text from a box, and that the user was, the from address was getting caught into spam. So how do you fix that? Well, the notice format has been updated, and instead, if you put your email in the carbon copy box, you'll be more successful in getting those overdues and notices emailed. Also, the overdues and notices, price was falling off the page for schools. So if they had long call numbers, it pushed the price. They fixed it, and now they moved the price just to the next line after the dates. So you can see the example there. Another report update to the patron report for users with lost items. Now this is running the report without going to the output options tab. So that, you're just good. You want to open it in Microsoft Word, you're not really fussing with the output options. Well, it always came out in a landscape, so that has been corrected. I promise not to read the whole presentation to you off screen. It's just, the updates are what they are. There's not much ad-libbing there. But in Blue Cloud, now if you're a Blue Cloud user, you may not be, but that's our light web version of using your catalog for circulating. Well, they have customized receipts. So everyone is assigned the default Cersei Dynex templates. And if you print receipts, let me know so I can address a small address, email, website, and additional information. You can't customize receipts for your whole ITC and or specific districts or schools. So if you do create a customized template, it does need to be assigned to the district circulation profile in Blue Cloud. And if you're looking at speaker notes, that's just a note for myself in case any of you approach me and say you need a fix. Okay, Melinda and I are choking in here. There's something in the air. Let's hope we're not being poisoned somehow. But if we drop off, you'll know something's happened to us. We just have something making us cough. So there we go. That is an update for Blue Cloud. And also, mark item lost in Blue Cloud. So you can do it from a user's items. You'll click that 3-dot menu over on the right for an item to mark it lost. So it'll pop out. And you can mark an item lost without billing the user. you just don't click Build as User box. So right there in that screen on the left, there's a little checkbox. You can just clear that out. Now you do have the Pay Now box checked if you want to click the Pay button. Otherwise, it'll prompt you for a payment type. And you can have the Pay Now box checked and choose Skip Payment, which seems, I don't know, a little wrong to me. Why would you check Pay Now and skip unless that's what you're doing? You're forgiving, or they pay elsewhere, say at the office, but just want to let you know the difference. Another Blue Cloud 225.06 update, missing. So from the catalog search in Blue Cloud circulation, a library staff can mark items missing. So items are checked out then to the missing user. And there's little boxes highlighting those options there. Now this has just been put in place, but it started back in August at the meeting, users meeting again in the fall. InfoHio got feedback from the Users Council, and they wanted to know where they could put a language filter for iSearch. Now, how does it affect you? Okay, well now the language filter is going to be directly after the genre in the iSearch filter list. And Lori and I were playing with this morning because she ran it and found that her books, and maybe Lori would want to unmute, she might do a better job than me explaining her experience, but I have a ticket open with InfoHio right now on this, because books that have, in the speaker notes I put that you have to have something in the language field, the 008 or the 041, to be correctly populated to show up here. Now, I did a search and found that one, and I think this is what Lori reported to me, that one was probably not English for its original language, that it was another language, so there was some tagging in there that made it stick out, I guess is my wording. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. But just in case you go to iSearch yourself and look at language, you don't have to have any word search at all. And if you go there and you see that there are other languages, it might be something we need to clean up, or say to me, hey Rebecca, I don't even know where to look, and it says I have books in Swahili. Then just get in touch with me and we'll see if it's something that needs cleaned up. If it's something that isn't even going to bother you, it might not. But we do want to be putting accurate information out there. So I'm looking to see if there's a way to clean these up in bulk. Hopefully there could be a script I could run for you guys. And Lori is looking at possibly cleaning up some of her items. Lori, did you want to say anything particular since I butchered that to death?
No, the way I just basically did a search, and instead of putting anything in the field, I just hit enter, and it basically brought all my books up. Then I went to the language drill down, and I noticed that there were all these languages. I'm like, oh, I don't have books in all those languages. And I do think it tends to be books that have been translated. So I'm thinking those translated texts need to be removed. You know, like if I say English Dutch or English or, Spanish, but the actual physical book is only in English. But in the past, it was originally published. So I think it's just smart cleanup. But then I know I have a couple other books that are written in Ukraine and Spanish that didn't show up. So now that, to go back and clean up that 008 or that 041, that was the other deal, adding those notes and modifying those records so those do come up, because those want students to be able to follow.
So for our very new people, if this just went way over your head, don't sweat it at all. If you haven't even cataloged a book, this cleaning up your own records would not be something I would ask of you at this time. But, we're just letting you know there's a new filter in there, and that way you can, if you really do have a community where you have kids who speak other languages, they might, and you have books that really are written in other languages, that would be very helpful to those kids. But it looks like there might be some cleanup, and this really just came out. Regarding Fetch, now there's a visual search. They also, back in August and then in the fall, they got input from those of you who are in the Users Council that they have added quick searches to the Fetch visual search. And this would be mostly for our primary buildings who benefit from this. And what did they add? They've added biographies, a whole top level. Within biographies, there is also a U.S. presidents. They have a sports, and if you go to sports, within sports, you'll find hunting. And then stories has a new area for fantasy. So there we go. That's the update for Fetch. Something new for you as well. Hey, it's 2026, so America is celebrating 250 years. And InfoOhio has an American 250 Choice Board Flyer. And it's for students grades pre-K to 8. And one side's designed for pre-K 4 learners, and the other is grades 5 to 8. And they designed it for, sparking curiosity, deepening students' understanding of America's history. So even pass this on maybe to your social studies teachers. If that hasn't been on their radar, this would be a helpful source to them. So in the speaker notes then, there's a link then to that flyer and a short bit.ly link as well. We have America 250 resources. This is a little detailed one. This is actually for grades 9 through 12 what they've done. So this is a series of text sets. Now the text set is a curated collection of 4 texts. They're paired with a learning activity. And again, we're sparking students' historical thinking. And it'll include a mix of videos. There'll be digital text in there and research-based activities. And hopefully it'll support comprehension and build writing and vocabulary skills. So pass those on to educators to use the text sets to explore those topics. And we have Ohio and Erie Canal. We have an Underground Railroad and a Northwest Ordinance text set. So and maybe your high school American history teacher would appreciate those resources. Due dates. Talking about due dates and snow days. What a coinkydink. I actually did this because if you look at that date there, that close date was the last time we had our users meeting. And it was a snow day as well. But we got lucky this time and we actually are in session even though we've been out this whole week. And here we are on a Thursday having our first day of school. So what we're looking at is that if you do bill fines, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody, so if it doesn't, you can kind of take a breather. But if fines are being charged for overdues, a closed date can be added to the calendar for the date the library is closed, due for any reason. So in your common tasks, when you're in workflows, that should be right there, the library calendar. And it'll pop up like the screen is showing, and you can enter in a closed date. Weekends are already marked. And if you go in there and you don't have any dates, then that's a sign to you like, whoops, our calendar dates weren't set. But I believe when I do my year-end information, I get your school calendar from you, and that's the reason why. Because I'm going in there and putting those in there for you. And if you don't have them, maybe I didn't get your calendar, or I messed up, or whatever reason. But there should be dates in there if you're on your own right now opening up workflows. So, snow days and fines, then you can check books under book drop check-in. And that way fines are not charged. I put in the speaker notes, the link to that PDF. So, and for a moment here, I'm going to pause just to let Lori have co-host. Andrea keeps dropping off, and I keep missing. I have too many screens, and I keep missing to get Andrea back in. Like, go back. So Lori, I'm going to give you co-host access, and then she can help me out. Okay. So Andrea, glad to have you back. Sorry you keep disappearing. Goodness. And Roseanne, you were one of those in the waiting room that I finally got to when I looked at that other screen. So when we're talking about snow days and fines, that's one step. You had your day, not a big deal. And in addition to adding the closed date or to do a book drop check-in, you need to tell me about updates. So I update the due dates. And I, to record, have never had anybody ask me to do this. I will if you really want me to, but I can do it en masse. So there are two other ways to update due dates. So, and either method requires you to send in a support ticket to me. So, I know I haven't been around long, maybe about 3 years, but still, we've had snow days, and I'm sure that's thrown off your overdues or your due dates. But if you're not billing, you're probably okay with that being a little inaccurate. But if you're billing, those are the districts who this really matters. So I'll run a script, and I run an active loans report with a due date, which, you know, the patrons are overdue for that particular snow day. And then I run edit due dates globally report. And I run the active loans, they have a due date, and then I verify the number of items being updated. So I have a note for self and speaker notes. If this happens and you are a district billing, then reach out to me with a support ticket and I'll do my part. So let's see, I had a few animations on that slide. And this is just showing the script here with these snow days and then some of the reports I would run. Now, another item, renew annual checkouts, such as your equipment that the kids get. And I'm so glad Melinda's here. We've already been having discussions because her kids check them out for 2 years. And so that's what, you know, if, and my note in the speaker notes is, if your checkout is for 2 years or if we have it set for just 1. I don't think you actually renew after, you do?
Yeah.
After the junior year?
Yes.
You'll renew them all? Okay. Well, I just had to check, but that we have another district, Elmwood Schools, they do that with equipment where they just need them renewed, everybody all at once. But the idea is it applies to cases when you need devices, they just stay checked out. The kids aren't bringing them back to you. You just know they still have it. And if those devices are checked out for the entire school year and you don't collect them, we need them renewed. Otherwise, they're going to come back to school and have an overdue. And if they're limited to the number of items checked out, then that'll also count against them too. And it'll not, sorry, if they're overdue and then they have a book that's overdue, now they're going to start getting blocked. When really that Chromebook or laptop is not overdue yet. So, that looks like the same exact screen. So, what happened? I had a renew annual checkout slide. Well, that's basically, that's funny. That's what I'll do there. It's similar to what I need to run for the snow day, where I just update the due dates globally. Training spotlight. Lori, would you unmute and give us a little taste of this? If you're able.
Yes, I'm happy to. I really don't know a whole lot about it, except for one of my teachers recently attended this free professional development opportunity. It's a virtual, and she said she learned so much. And I thought, what a timely time to share it with all of you and spread the word. It's put on by this Ohio Deaf and Blind Education Services. Um, and the registration link is in her handout here. I'm excited. Signed up to do the Zoom call myself and shared it with my library aides in our district. But I just thought, anybody else that might have students in your schools that are deaf or hard of hearing or blind or visually impaired, um, or it looks like deaf blind is another option. They're going to just address how we can make story time more meaningful for those students.
I put in that slide, register online, and that is linked. It's also in the speaker notes. So thank you, Lori, for telling us about it. It is put on there by the Ohio Deaf and Blind Education Service, so it's statewide. A school spotlight is on Norwayne Elementary, and these are recent photos. They had some remodeling, and so if you enter their gorgeous double doors, off on the left wall is a wall of shelves, 2 carpets, circulation desk is straight ahead. And then just off to the right are tables. They have a great space. And what I'm going to do here in the next few shots is to just kind of focus on the paintings that were added in. The paintings aren't the newest. They were there all last school year. But if you're looking at the picture on the right, there are 2 doorways. So this library had a wall put into it, and oddly enough, they're not the only one this school year. Rittman Middle School, not Rittman, Orville Middle School just had the same thing where they took like a back wall and they made offices. And so that was done to this space, and that's why they had a change. But these paintings were done with their I think the high school art teacher and their art club. And so if you're trying to add some more color or something new to your library, something to consider. I just wanted to do some close-ups. So there's the Harry Potter, Hogwarts book, and some phrases to go along. The more you read, a nice Dr. Seuss one with everybody kind of mixed in, the book under the stack of books under the clock. Looks like maybe they had more titles to put in, but that's okay. Not all the books have writing on the spines. In the corner, we have the giving tree. And then as I was standing in the corner with the giving tree to my back, I'm looking back across the whole space. I'm in the corner up on the wall where those 2 doorways were. And then across from there, we have the doorways again, just closer, and then Clifford. So nicely painted, well done, very bright and fun looking. Another spotlight is Triway Elementary. New building, they consolidated from 2 locations, and this was one I gave some concept pictures in a past meeting, and they went into these things called pods. And so like you have, Melinda, you have the ketchup, is it still Ketchup Cafe, or is it just part of the cafeteria?
There's a snack shack.
Okay, snack shack. So her library is an open shared space like this. And I wasn't so keen on it until I actually got to be there and with all the books. It's gorgeous. And so they have 3 pods. This one is for kindergarten. And so if I entered, on my left side, there was this library. The style is where a pod will have all the classrooms. The classrooms all have a garage door and a classroom door. So they can really open up, and the classrooms can really feel like the hallway's part of their room, and that's a learning area too. So then there was more than this one S-shaped shelves, but as I was walking into the space, it's showing that it has books on one side, seating's on the other, and if you went through the double doors, the cafeteria is on the far end. So I walked forward. Now in the third picture on the right, I have those cafeteria doors to my back, and I'm looking back at the S-shaped shelf and that shelf that has the little egg guy with the yellow background. I'm just looking backwards at the space. So that's just for kindergartners. And what the librarian does, she travels to these different pods different times a day. And she didn't have a set schedule when I got to visit, that they were working on that because it was at the beginning of the year. Now they have another pod for their grades 1 to 2, and just a little close-up of book bins still in use, some table seating, the garage doors that go into the classes. They have a circular set up for those books, plus I had like a wall of books in front of me for 1s and 2s. 3s, 4, and 5. These grades, I'm not going to do this justice. They had oodles of books, and it was an L-shaped hallway, so I really only captured a portion of this. And these cool alternative seating. This is more of that space, but they had lots and lots, rows and rows of books. I just felt she did a really nice job organizing it all. And if any of you have something change in your space, or you just want to share it to say, hey, this is us, please do. I'm always happy to spotlight any of you. And I'm going to move on unless we have any feedback on our spotlight. We're into the bulk of our training now for weeding. Oh boy, I'm actually excited about this. I haven't talked about this for quite some time. And when I get into this, I don't want it to overwhelm anyone. That's certainly not my intent. But after you know a little bit, I think you'll be wiser and realize it's something you can do a little bit every day. And it really is not hard. It's just probably the hard part is getting started, just doing something. And the last time I even got to talk about this in a support meeting like this, it was 2023 in October. So I remember doing it back then. I remember it was crammed. So what we're going to do is spend our bulk of our time and concentrate and give it justice this time. So there is this document called the CREW method, and I wanted to just read out this quote. Lack of funds to replace outdated or worn items is never an excuse for not weeding. And another quote, knowing where the library is and where you want it to go is the first step in weeding. So you might not have a formal plan. You probably have some idea of what your community wants. You know, kids walk up to you and they're like, do you have this book? You know, they're going to give you that feeling and direction. So as you make decisions, maybe about budget, look for additional sources of funds. Maybe there's grants, there's gifts, and select material to add to the collection. You must also keep in mind what's already in the collection, and perhaps of equal or greater importance is what needs to be taken out from the collection. So you're a library manager, you have all this to kind of juggle. So your responsibility is to kind of maintain a collection that's free from outdated, obsolete, shabby, or no longer useful items. So, rule of thumb, held by many library professionals, they're saying about 5% of the collection to be weeded every year. That allows for turnover of the collection every 20 years. And that's coming out of that CREW method document. So, I have up on screen 6 benefits of weeding. And I guess this is me on my soapbox, trying to say, this is a good thing for you. Does it seem overwhelming or foreign? Maybe, but it really is a good thing. So, number 1, shelf space, that costs money in a variety of ways. So, you know, the shelves, if it's good practice, should never be more than 85% full. And they're saying 75% is even better. I'm looking at a picture there, I can't guess what percent that is, but I know they're not 85. Like, you can tell there's space there. And that gives you the ability to have those forward-facing books, and, you know, maybe kids are a little bit more pulled into it because it doesn't look overwhelming to approach. Number 2, you save your time and your patrons, the kids, from reshelving books or when looking for items. With ragged books, those cost time sorting through items that are just sitting there, they're not relevant, and they don't want to even get touched. And then Lori added this note, and I threw it in the speaker notes. She tells her staff the goal should be to read about as many books as you add each year, right? You know, that does make, that's kind of like common sense. Otherwise, your shelves become too full. Now, the trick is there, you have to have a library budget, right? So, if you don't mind, and I don't know what you have, Melinda, if you have a budget.
We do.
Okay.
We don't have a dedicated librarian, that's our problem.
Yeah.
And then now the English department sort of has taken it over, but it's,
Okay. Doing okay?
I can't get them to decide which books to buy.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So
They ask their
we might
kids?
miss. Yeah, they have ideas, but it's just cumbersome. We need a library.
Okay. And so in the chat, if you are willing, and you don't have to, let me know if you have a budget. If you do, I'm not asking moms, I'm just curious who out there has a budget, or is it a Scholastic Book Fair budget where you have to do your fair in order to get books? Or money, for that matter. All right. So we're seeing in our chat answers back. Erin says yes. And she has Book Fair and Mackin. And Lori, they thankfully do have a budget. And some of her schools have book fairs. And Andrea says she has a budget. It's just not a set amount. Yeah, those are the, the ones that, you know what, shoot for the moon and all they can say is no. So you always ask and maybe you'll get lucky and get everything you want. And Roseanne from West Holmes has a budget going down each year as book costs go up. Yikes. Yeah, you got a point there. Well, let's move on to item 3, and you make the collection more appealing. So even classics and favorite books, they'll benefit from replacing a clean copy, and that's why I put Seuss in there, because you know those books have been around some time. And there's a few ragged spines in that photo. Waynedale, I know they bought the classics when they got their new building, and they have the gold edge, like literally when she pulled that book off the shelf. It was tiny. I mean, it wasn't a large body book, but with that gold edging, that book was heavy. Classics are usually a good 1-inch thick books, but it was impressive. It just was, wow. And it looked new. It was physically new, even though it was a classic story. So you can do that if you have the funds for it. Or that's something you can ask of. Like if you know you want to keep those classics, but you feel they're not getting touched because of how they look, you have a direct request that you can head out to your Women's League or to your Moose or Kiwanis and say, we would like to replace the classics. And, you know, try to get some funding that way. Number 4, you want your library's reputation to be for reliability and currency. And that way you guys build trust. So let's say a selection of astronomy books. They have pre-Hubble space exploration, or Pluto is still a planet. So you kind of have a credibility gap happening there. And that'll discourage students from even using your library because the information is inaccurate. And soon they feel you have nothing of value to them. So pull that stuff out of there. Does it mean you have nothing on space right now? Maybe. You don't want to be putting bad books in their hands. Now Erin has in our chat, they also get books that are weeded from their public library. And the branch in their town's very small, space-wise, so their turnover is quick. Oh, yay for you. And the books they give her are pretty new and in excellent shape. Wonderful. We'll talk about donated books here at the end, because sometimes you might receive donations of newish books, but maybe there are books you can put in your library. What could you do with those? So, let's go on to 5. You will keep up with this crew method I'm going to introduce here. It is continuous. So you're going to check on things and the needs for repair. Maybe there's lost books that need replaced or unused items that just need removed. You'll do it with almost no effort, honestly. And then if there's a serious area, you can schedule weeding in that specific area to concentrate on gaps in your collection. So you're just needing to keep up with the needs. And 6, continuous weeding will give you a greater knowledge of your collection because you're really paying a little more attention rather than check in, beep, 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 in and out. And it's helpful when asking for donations and deciding what to purchase. So what is this crew method? There is a whole cycle of service, and crew is the bottom icon in this wheel that's on screen. So on the left, that's where I'm going to start. Selection and acquisition. So SA. Now, this is usually maybe you're selecting books because you're reading reviews. You're perusing catalogs. Melinda's talking to the English teachers, trying to get what they want. Consider what the patrons are asking you for. And then the acquisition is you ordering and paying for those books. Now the next one in the wheel is across the top, and it's CP for the cataloging. So that means you have to get those cataloged, processed, put their barcode on them, put their cover on them, enter them to the catalog. But those are those books that you were selecting and acquiring. And then the next part of the process is getting the books out there, circulating, and having kids read and use them, and they're out on the shelves. So they're maybe being used in-house, maybe you have you have staff using them, and then as that cycle of service, crew is up next. So the details of crew are this. It is continuous review and evaluation and weeding. Now, if you're wondering where this all came from, it is more than 40 years old. And oddly enough, it is still valid. It came from the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, and it was guidance for librarians and staff. Now, it was written for small and medium-sized public libraries. And it was saying, hey, this is how you can help yourself take out outdated, no longer useful material from your collection. So it started in 1976, but it's become the benchmark tool for weeding. Now, there's a reference card. I gave Melinda one. That's the benefit of coming in person. You get handouts. So she has hers printed. I have mine in my hand. And what we'll do, this quick reference card, we'll pull it up here, one side. So if I'm looking at this one side of the document, there's numbers. So what do they all mean? And I kind of wish, I guess they do. On the one side, they explain it. So maybe not, while you're looking at the slide, you could be looking at the other side of the card or the quick reference guide. So the first figure refers to the years since the book's latest copyright date. So that's the age of the material in that book. All right, that's your first. And they're saying 5, or you see 2, or you see 10. So the second figure refers to the maximum permissible time without usage. And so we're seeing on that chart 3s. We're seeing a lot of 3s in that second 2. Because that means, okay, if it's been sitting on your shelf, not checked out for 3 years or for 2 years. And then the third digit refers to the presence of various negative factors. So they call these the MUSTIE Factors. I'll bring that acronym up here in a moment. They'll help influence your weeding decision. So this is a little formula, and you could also add 3 variables listed, or make an or. You know, it's really up to you. You don't have to have MUSTIE and the numbers. You could do it either or with it. When you visit, and I hope you do, the full guide on the CREW method, page 61 goes into the details about the Dewey class. So that's what this card is showing. We're seeing 000 for general, the 100s, the 200s, 300s are your social sciences. So those are our Dewey numbers, and just that's how they organized it. And then they're saying, well, you know, for certain areas, and I missed my note because there's an X. You guys see the X in some of the places there? And the X is saying, if you see that, it's really not a factor. So if there's an X in the first place, they're saying, all right, copyright date doesn't really matter. Or if the X is, let's see, like folklore. We'll say folklore there in our card, 398, top center column, it has an X at the start. Earth Science 550, down the center column, has an X. Graphic novels are a format, not a genre, and most are paperbacks. So you see they have an X, and because of their popularity, consider weeding based on last circulation. So you just skip the X, go on to the number that would matter, and then weed using the MUSTIE Factors. So that's a little guide, or outline on how to use the CREW guidelines for weeding. And I want to ask, or actually, I'm going to look at Lori's tip in our chat. She says, I tell our staff to double the numbers for most collections, otherwise our shelves would be bare. Thank you, Lori, for reminding me. Where did that note go? I thought I had that. I'm skipping over things. And
it's okay. I mean, like on your screen, I'm looking at pet books. Most of our pet books are older than 5 years old. So, even if they're 10 years old, and it kind of depends on the topic. Like you mentioned, the space books, those medical books, those we are a little more close with the numbers. But things like agriculture, pets, I'm like, we're good even if they're 10 years old. But then thinking about purchasing, if you're buying a new agriculture book, for example, a 630 book, you don't want to buy something that's 3 or 4 years old, or it's already coming to the end of their recommended life. So, really paying attention to your copyright years when you're buying new, especially nonfiction.
awesome. Yeah, look at religion already. They have 10. Philosophy has 15. Some of those have some whopper numbers. I'm curious why games has 10. I think of games, and now I'm thinking more like technology games, like video games, and I wouldn't put a 10 on a, but that would probably be fitted more in technology. So,
Yeah, these would probably be more like your chess games or your.
got it. All right. And this, I will say, with the CREW guidelines, when I went looking for the document itself, Texas, they took it off their site. I found a link from another lady, and the last time it was updated was 2012. And I know that sounds ancient, But when you have no idea where to start, this is still, and it's been a reliable resource for so many years. It's been working for so long, you know, just somebody out there needs to write something new from the sounds of it. So I'm not going to throw this totally out because of the copyright date of it. I'm going to, you know, use it, and then, like Lori says, adjust it. Double the numbers because you're a public school. Now those MUSTIE factors, and they stand, as you can see, I don't need to read every one of those. They are 6 negative factors that make books or other materials prime candidates for weeding. And, you know, if something's misleading, it's no longer accurate. So those are your areas like technology, medicine. They change rapidly. Is it ugly? So are there stains, tears, yellowed pages? That is probably the one you can handle daily. A book comes in from a kiddo, even though it was just circulated, or you're walking your shelves and you're just tidying them up, and you're like, whoa, look at the spine on this book. Bang, you can pull that easy peasy and keep your collection looking nice. Now, you know, then you have to decide what to do with it after, but that's still that part of weeding. For the S, superseded. So is there a newer edition, a better book on the subject? This is a little harder, especially for reference materials. You know, you'd want to see if they have a new edition. Is it trivial? So no merit now, but it was in the past. So maybe it was pop culture that's not valuable anymore. Or irrelevant. Does it interest your community? Because I've seen books in one school district that fly off the shelves, and in another, they wouldn't even put them on their shelves. I mean, it's surprising, even in a rural community, our larger districts or the ones that are or a bigger city, in cities really kind of still, like I'm thinking of Worcester, that's kind of still a loose term. It's not that big of a city that they're gonna have different books. So is it something your community needs? And lastly, if if the information can be obtained quickly elsewhere, get it off your shelves. So I'm going to quiz you guys. And so in this presentation, Melinda will just have to shout out her answers. But the rest of you, if you want to put in the chat or type a letter for any of the MUSTIE factors. So the next slide will have all those on there. This World Book Collection. I've seen one of these Janessa recently in her library, and I giggle a little. She had it really high up, so it was there for, you know what, that would be a shelf that kids couldn't reach anyhow. But she has it there, and she knows she can pull it and use it and talk about the history of encyclopedias with the kids. And I like that this picture, okay, I think they all just have a reference tag on them, because to me that tag almost says like, yeah, that's a reference tag that's in the yellow and red. So in the chat, put if you would think this World Book Collection would be misleading, ugly, superseded, is it trivial, irrelevant, or is it in electronic format? And you can put as many letters as it fits. So we do have an E from Erin. Absolutely. Our encyclopedias are electronic now. Lori has all the letters but U. Because they're not ugly, they're gorgeous. That's right. They just, all the books spell out World Book. Lots of E's, definitely. If we were forced to pick one, that would be the one I would pick. How about you, Melinda?
Yeah, the E. I wouldn't say superseded, but probably because it's old.
Yeah, because that S would mean there's a newer edition.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely a newer edition. Thank you guys. All right, we got good answers in our chat, lots of E's. And this is a fun one. That's our next test. Just see if you guys were paying attention. So, my Pictionary. What do you think? Are they misleading? Do all those women still wear polyester suits? Every woman is wearing a dress, by the way. I love some of the things. They didn't even, I don't know, they didn't call it, they call them things. That was the category on that page.
Kids don't even know what those
Things are? Well, that record player, it's made a comeback,
That's true.
but that TV is quite curious. The phone. It's always fun to pull out a phone for kids. And Roseanne has put in everything but the T. Yeah, because it's not pop culture. It was really just true life. Pictures still exist, lamps still exist, so do those other objects. They're just very different looking. So we do have irrelevant, some people don't use record players anymore, like the majority. Like I said, it just made a comeback with kids recently. So we have a variety of letters there. Fun pictures though.
Yeah.
This book did come out of one of our libraries recently. So here we go. Another test. It's our last one. Misleading, ugly, superseded. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. And before I shout out anything, Melinda can tell me her thoughts.
I think just ugly and.
Yeah, it's definitely got that first one. There's tears in that old cover.
But I think kids still like to read. So that's, it's just like we watch classic movies.
Ah, good point. It's hard for me sometimes watching a movie even, and they're like, just call them on the cell phone. Oh, I didn't have one. And I'm not like watching a Western. I'm watching something, just 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they couldn't do that. All right, so Roseanne, she's put in here use, and she has a very large collection, and they move well. Was that Nancy Drew that you were referring to, Roseanne? Oh, right, and Katie, she put in here the Enola Holmes. I'm pronouncing her name right. She's all new. Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Nancy and Hardy. I even picked those. Now, these were not in our libraries. I had to pick those. I think the first picture is, but yeah, I've seen these on your shelves, definitely. Even in that spotlight at Triway, she had a whole beautiful row of, I think they were Nancy Drew. I want to say they were. All right, so Roseanne has both of those. So we're getting the U, the S, the D. Yeah, I mean, we're finding some of these now in electronic format. All right. So we're getting through and learning on what to look for. But Workflows has something for us too, and it has this handy dandy reading report. And Melinda and I have hard copies printed out. The rest of you should have that. Let me do something here if you don't have it handy. I'll try to open up another window here. I will bring up the info tile. Goodness gracious. I'll bring up our website because I think this is a good idea anyhow, to take you all to our library support page, because I've linked these handouts in this presentation here today. So the crew method, quick reference card, the manual, and here we are, reading report. So got that up there. So we have that available. I'm going to put that in our chat for anybody who doesn't want to do all that clicking. So this is where Lori gave me a note that I remember now, that Lori said she likes to use older than 5 years instead of 3. So let me explain where her 5 is coming from. There on the right side of our screen, it says M is 36. So M is going to stand for months when we run this, and 36 months. So there's your 3 years. So she bumps that up to 5, so that would say 60 instead of 36. She also likes to narrow down less than 2 instead of never loaned. Okay, so I'll need to back up to actually the steps in the reading report. And why don't I pull open workflows here? Well, if you want to do the same, that way you can run your reading report. I apologize for not being signed in ahead of time.
While she's pulling that up, those are just ideas. What I find is, you know, we don't like to get rid of books that are just 3 years old. We tend to have limited collections, so 5 years old is a little more realistic to start considering weeding. And then if you haven't weeded for a long time, maybe you do want 0 loans. I kind of feel like if that book, one random child just happened to pull it off the shelf and check it out one time, it would be eliminated in their default setting. So that's why I like to consider maybe those books that have been checked out once or twice.
That's true. And you always have to tell yourself those new books that you just cataloged, or they haven't been checked out. So, and they're also going to be, well, they should probably get ignored, right? Because they are less than the
right. Yeah, basically their default settings, it's going to ignore all the books that you bought in the last 3 years. I ignore all the books we bought in the last 5 years.
Got it. Let me fix this here. This font is really teeny tiny. And we'll make this bigger. It'll just be easier for you all to read. Plus, I like it larger anyway. There we go. So your workflows might be a different color, certainly. That's fine. This one was set to blue, a nice cold winter blue. So if we're going to get through this, we got to find our reports. I'm going to zip this up. Reports and notices, schedule new. Let me do this also. And my box was checked, so it made me review my settings. And we need to find our reading. And if I go through the steps here, it's on the Ohio tab. That's our favorite, right? We go there all the time. It's in the list, about the 5th one down, cat reading list. And we're going to either double click or select and go to the bottom to set up and schedule. So if you want, you can rename it. You know, this is training we're doing right now, but this is my training actual library. And if we want to go, move on, you can change the footer too if you want, but the title selection tab, this is what we're going to click on, that little gadget to the right of any of these fields here to narrow down the report. Selections don't have to be made here. They're welcome, you know, if you want to further it down to anything listed here, maybe by a certain publication. I'm going to move on. I don't think I'm going to do anything here. It's the call number selection tabs next. Again, if there is anything here, and call number range would let you just work on a small area in your library, not be trying to read the whole thing at once. I don't think I'm setting anything here. It's really this item selection where the bulk of what you do is going to matter. So I don't have my library selected, so I'm going to make sure I select it first. Maybe yours is already loaded. That's wonderful. We have down below the gadget next to date last checked out. So this one is date last charged is my wording. Melinda, does yours say charged or checked out? Charged. Okay. We might just have a slight difference. I know when I launched my workflows just now, it told me I needed to get that update that came out recently. And so ignore my wording on my screen if yours says checked out. But still, the meaning is about the same here, where it says, all right, last time, 36, and that would be 3 years. And what was your number? Because you changed this too, right, Lori? This is your 5 years? Still have Lori.
Sorry, I was talking and muted. Yeah, that's where you would adjust. So 36 is 3 years. So whatever you want to adjust it to, so 60.
All right. And I'm not going to click the arrow that many times, so I'm just typing it in, 60. And okay, now that is...
And then up at the item type on that screen, that's another one maybe to consider. If you want to just focus on your fiction or your easy, that's rather than dealing with call number ranges.
Okay. Very good. So I can say okay to just my easy books if I wanted. Yep. Boy, I am getting, oh, that's my fault. I didn't, my window is small, so I did not click. It's over now. And okay. Beautiful. And then it always lists items never checked out, and that's the new change that you added, Lori. And where is my checked out?
Your date created would be your other one.
Yeah,
There you
that's set. But you said, I don't want the zeros. You had 2 times, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So, and here my screen says charges, but that, I'm wondering why I'm getting this weird reading.
Yeah, me too. I don't know.
I haven't been in here for a while
Yeah.
because I didn't have the December class in here. So if it's
Yeah, our screen says total number of total checkouts.
checked out,
Then
you
use
guys
the
have-
less than 2.
Oh, okay.
less than 2.
That's what I usually do. At least it's a little more aggressive. If you've never weeded, you might want to leave that. You know, those are the numbers you play with. Your list comes up and you're just like, oh, that's way overwhelming. You adapt some of these numbers to make it more of a list you can cope with.
Well, and I mean, we know our libraries are not cutting edge, right? So why run a report that's just going to shoot out half a ream of paper and say, well, everything in here, pull it. And you're like, no, make it more reasonable. So we've gotten down here to step 13. I don't think we're doing anything else. So I'm going to the back side of the first page, and we want to be sure, of course, you want your settings for report session already done before we're midstream, but I'm clicking on spreadsheet because I do like spreadsheets. I like that I can control them, and then down below I could even select additional features. So let's see, anything, if you could do brief, that's fine. Then you could open it in Microsoft Word, or even Notepad, but I just really like spreadsheet. They're saying here it is optional. When running the report in long or spreadsheet format, you'll be able to select last checkout date has been selected to be included with the report output. So last checkout date's in there too. Well, mine is not, so I'm going to check last checkout date. I like sometimes total number, because like, was it popular at some point? You know, is that telling me, huh, it was out 24 times, well, let me look at the title. Oh, that's why, because that was popular 5 years ago, but it hasn't been checked out for the last 5 years. So I'll check that just because I can. Now, if I think I'm going to keep these settings and want to use them over and over, I could hit save as template. I personally am not. I'm going to just click run now and click in the pop-up display finished reports. The rest of the handout was going into emailing the lists to someplace, and I just hit run. If you don't have your workflow set up for Excel, there's a link on the third page that talks about how to view reports in Excel. So, and there's nothing on the fourth paper. It's a 3-page document this time. So I'm happy to see my report is done. The weeding list, a titled training, and I did not check if this was set up with Excel. Of course. The very popular specified path was not found, and that is my fault. How about you, Melinda?
I'm gonna see here.
All right, just leave the middle box checked. That's the only one.
Okay.
Because it's an info file.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, both of us. Okay. That's what happened. I didn't check these machines beforehand. Hopefully the rest of you are more successful. You don't really need to see mine. I'll get Melinda's fixed here before she goes, so you can still see hers. And that report will be there when you go
Exactly.
back.
Exactly.
So at least you ran it. Did you do 5 years? Under 2 checkouts?
I did.
Like Lori
Yep.
suggested. How about others out there who use this weeding report? Because I know we have Roseanne in there in our meeting. We have Andrea. We have folks in here who know this stuff better than I do. Any other tips or what you do with the weeding report? I'd love to hear.
One other tip I do have is when it opens up in spreadsheets, that barcode always comes up like a random characters. You just need to format that. I don't know if you're familiar, if everybody's familiar, but if you just right click and say format cells and then choose a number with 0 decimals, it will make it look like a nice barcode number. Because that always throws us for a loop when you open that up. It's like, yeah, how can I tell which barcode number it even is? Especially if you have like 2 copies of something.
All right, well, I'm going to get mine fixed to show them that. And I'm going to add to that, Lori. Recently, I taught a session on macros in Excel. So I'm not trying to make anybody's head hurt right now. But I have a macro on my computer. So all I have to do is click this little button and it makes that first column formatted for me. And I don't have to do all the right clicking and format 0 decimal points, and I use that constantly. So if anybody's curious, and even all a macro is that when you open Excel and you do a little task, you record that task. So you never have to do it again. And it's recorded, and then you can just put it on a little toolbar so that you press the button every time you open, say, shelf lists or this reading list. Whatever's in that column that you record it'll do that task for you. It's phenomenal. So I was hoping here to fix this in the time. I'm in the root folder, August 16th, but I can't type and click at the same time. Roseanne, she is reporting in, playing around with lots of variation, especially if the first list is hundreds of pages long. Her collection's older than it should be. Her budget is a huge factor to what we can get rid of. Yeah, so sad. Wish my computer would go when I click it. I really clicked. To the ease. Here's our friend, Excel. And open. Okay. And now if I try to click my print, we can show you what Lori and I have been babbling about. So here comes Excel. Oh, lovely, my report is empty. Well, darn. Well, you know why? Because I'm a training, and I should have just left my checkouts to 0, because nobody's in there. But here's what I'll do. So when a digit is long, and this is what Lori was talking about here, your first column is showing this in scientific notation. It just says, that's too many numbers, I can't read that. And so it looks like this. And so what she mentioned was she'll select her column, you can right click, and then you can pick Format Cells. When you do that, this little box will show and say, well, what's in here? It's a number. Does a barcode have decimals? No. So I'll change that to 0 and I'll click OK. And voila, you get the 14 digits you were expecting to see. And what I was saying is I recorded a little thing called a macro. That is this little guy here. And then I have a button across the top of my Excel. When I click it, it will do all those steps for me every time I open. And I'm happy if that interests anybody, we can make that part of a next training. I'll point out where I have the recording for it, honestly, and I used this a shelf list in my training as an example. So, okay, Melinda's up for it. I'll at least get the recording out and you guys can check that out. It's pretty cool. So, my results didn't fit. Hopefully those of you aren't out there with hundreds of pages. Maybe it's a reasonable list. But are there any questions on running that reading report? Now I think this next slide is all you, Lori. The duplicates.
Oh, yeah, this is something that I went as we're boxing books and getting ready for these remodels in our couple buildings. I found that we had a lot of, especially like your Cliffords, your Curious Georges, those collections are so big and it's like, what are our duplicates here? So I ran this report and found it pretty helpful. The catch though is depends on how well your cataloging is. Like occasionally we have 2 records and those 2 books are sitting in the same library and they should be the same record with like copy 1, copy 2. So this report is only going to catch those that you do have kind of copy 1, copy 2 of the same book. But it did help us just kind of like, oh gosh, I didn't realize we even had 2 of that Clifford book or 2 of that Curious George book. And I think what happens is we buy that replacement because one is musty, but that musty one never gets thrown away. So just another like one that I found useful as we kind of try to narrow down our collections. It might be a title you really want 2 copies of, but oftentimes that book's not so popular anymore and you really don't need 2 copies. It's just kind of taking up that shelf space.
There is a consolidation report out there that will run for you 3 different things. It'll run for you, and if you're in that situation, which we in this region have had a library consolidation every year, the last 3 years. We have one more coming. West Holmes, their libraries are going into a new building. And it'll run the report to show you if you have duplicates, like Lori's mentioning, like who has how many copies. It'll also show your onlys, so there's an onlys report, and I can't think of the third one right now. But that's something, because when you are slimming down and you guys have to get your numbers lower, then you got to know who's the one who has the only copy in that case. You don't want to weed it out if no one else has it. Or, like Lori says, we have 2 of the Clifford, the same copy, keep the best looking one. So Lori, this remove item from You were just showing us the steps. Now that you've had them weeded, you've gone and taken it off the shelf. This is what you would do in workflows. This handout is on our resource page. I didn't print this one for you, I don't think, for you. So if you need it, I don't have a hard copy.
Yeah.
And
Yep. It basically, this is just our procedure. I know you mentioned you can get into the reports that you can mass do, but oftentimes we just remove a small, we work selection by selection over the course of time. And my main caution is if you are a district with multiple libraries, make sure you're only removing your own copy. We've had that accidentally happen with new staff where they check mark them all and suddenly that book is deleted across the whole district. So just kind of watch those check marks. And then what we found is useful is we permanent marker that we just put a big black permanent marker across that barcode and we stamp it with whatever stamp you have, withdrawn, discarded, canceled. And that's a nice red flag when that book comes haunting you again. Oh, nope, we already got rid of that book in the past.
Also for removing, now this is if you want to just handle it all your own. You don't need to put in a support ticket. You are taking it out of the collection. It is as if it never existed anymore. Another route is if you have such a huge stack, and not that going this way is a huge burden, but I know at one library in Chippewa, we had a whole cart full, both sides. There were 600 books on it. And so we used global item modify and just beep, 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 beep all the way through. And using that, and I think I talked about that in December because it was just coming up in a lot of the requests. You can have it do an action. And all we were doing with that full cart was scanning them and changing their status. And we changed their status to discard. Great. And then if that's the case, you have 600 items now with discard status. There is one thing you have to do. You got to send in a ticket to me to say, Rebecca, I have X number. And this has been my Friday. I look forward to it now every Friday in West Helms, one of those libraries. She is sending me her discard list. So she's weeding. She's preparing to get those 4 elementaries down into 1. And she gives them to me weekly. She's like, here's my 70, here's my 107, and I remove them right away. So she just does global item modify, and then there is a luxury there. I run a spreadsheet, so you have record of what you removed. But you can keep your own records other ways too. That's fine. You could even use that weeding report and highlight it to kind of indicate. And in the chat, Roseanne's asking, does removing an item or a collection of items also remove the circulation history? We do need those stats for a number of reasons. Oh gosh, Lori might have to bail me out on this one. Does it take away the I would think it's gone.
Yeah, I'm afraid it probably would. I would run some of those reports before you do that mass weeding.
And that's why, yeah, when I run that shelf list, I include the number of times checked out and what's the other box right next to it? Shoot. Last checkout date. I include those too. So you have that. Yeah, thank you, Erin. Last checkout date. Perfect. Yep. So here's another thing. Another district, they have to get approval from their school board in order to have those items approved to be taken out. So they really can't sit down and remove them one by one. That's they're waiting. They've got them all piled up. And Roseanne is asking if I can give directions on the global removal I was talking about. Absolutely, yes. Like I said, it's been very popular this school year. So I will write that down to be sure we give that to Roseanne. If I get a minute, I can even put it in the chat. Or if Lori is able to multitask, global item modify. It is my best friend. It is that in the shelf list report. All right, and so the school gave me their list. They had 1,068 items back in November, and then they had a December school board meeting, and then I saw on the school board notes that they were approved. Fine. And so during that time, that library continued to mark things for discard. So before I removed them, having the go-ahead, I have the green light, I reran the shelf list of all the discards, and it increased by 60. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And so I need to talk to that library because if you're in that situation where your school board has to approve, and there's going to be a delay, but you're continuing your weeding, because remember, this is something that just happened a little bit here and there, then what I would recommend is not do global item modify and pick discard. I would pick another status, like weeding. Because at the very beginning I said, what InfoHio told me, the only difference between weeding and discard status is the first letter, the one begins with a D and one begins with a W. Oh, thank you, Lori got in our document in the chat about global item modify. Yes. So we want to plan things so that way the flow is pretty easy. I was lucky, I got myself out of the jam, and InfoHio helped me. I said, hey, I've got the spreadsheet. I got the barcodes of 1,068 items. And we were able to actually, not that you need these details, but we got out of the jam. We used the inventory process where you would upload barcodes, and that gave those 1,068 items an inventory date of that day. I was like, sweet, that just pulled them away from the 60 others, because I couldn't remove the 60 others, they haven't been approved yet. So I will talk with that library. This just happened on Friday, if you're wondering why I'm telling my story. So if we move forward in our presentation, what to do with weeded books. Lori says, this is crazy. People don't have time to do this. What to do? You're going to have this disposal slip. So it comes out of the appendix or addendum of the crew manual. I only threw it in there because I thought, well, that's nice. Maybe you slap one of these on the box of 100 books. Maybe, if it matters. So somebody doesn't return the whole box to you. I don't know. But it is an idea of what to do, or maybe you have stacks in your separating them. Maybe this could be okay, this is the stack for discard. This is the stack for the book sale. This is the stack for it needs repaired. So that's just an idea, not that you would have to actually have, Sharpie marker through the barcode, stamp, discard, you're also good. So what are you going to do with them? Where are they going to go? And if you don't have policy that says you're allowed to sell it, then you can't. But if you do, there are 2 listed there. They are linked in our presentation. And from Lori, she said, definitely reinforce that the staff should communicate with administration and your treasurer's office to determine what to do with weeded books. So at her district, they're not allowed to sell. So their policy, they first let kids and teachers select the withdrawn books, yay, and then they donate. The remaining go to thrift stores or community book sales. So the public, you could use a book dealer or a pulp dealer, but they're going to want a large lot, like that. They're going to want a big portion. This would only help those who are probably closing a library or consolidating. So definitely follow district policy. Maybe the items have to be transferred then to like your PTO or to a Friends of a Library then for sales. And they say, all right, what we sell, we'll give back, but it's really another entity making the sales. And I'm not trying to get you to circumvent your policy. I'm just saying those are some things that were in the crew documentation. So links in the speaker notes, just make sure you know what the requirements are before going forward. So selling, donating, donating is not profitable, but it does promote good public relations, if only very good discards are donated. So don't put the worst of the worst and say, here you go. Giving away junk doesn't promote good public relations. Maybe places to put them, doctors' waiting rooms, the laundromats. There's those local free libraries. You see those everywhere. I know I've taken them to our state park, to one of the little free libraries. And then types of disposal, you could also trade it, or there's a place called the Duplicates Exchange. So you're thinking, well, the ones we have are really in bad shape. Nobody's going to want those. But you might also get in those donations. And I referenced this a little bit ago. You get a donation in, you're like, oh, this is awesome, a beautiful Stephen King book. But that's not appropriate for our kids. So if that's the case, you could possibly send that book somewhere else for a sale, and maybe they could offer money for that donation. Again, really touchy, because you have to communicate and you have to let those donors know what have happened to those books as well. Now, another idea of recycling. So this is, I'll just play through it quick, this altered book projects. Now hers, to me, that example looked like a real clean notebook, but she has others that, I just love the layering. And so consider your art department. There are a lot of different ways that they're turning books into almost like trapper keepers with pockets in them, and then they're able to draw on the pages. Whoops, sorry about that. And if you haven't seen already, my daughter's even she made a little hedgehog out of a library book in a workshop one year. These are definitely more complicated, but the hedgehog was pretty easy. And put little Google eyes on him, and he was a cute little book. So the last would be destroy it, which is probably the worst thing for you to hear, but sometimes it's necessary. I did put the link to the book folding in the speaker notes on one of the slides there. So reserve materials in the worst physical condition. That's when you have to destroy them. They're absolutely hopeless cases. Last resort if the books cannot be recycled or sold for pulp. But the advantage is it requires minimal time and effort, right? You aren't waiting on a sale. You're not, dropping off at many laundromats and doctor's offices. But the drawback for having to destroy a book is there's no benefits to anyone. No money, no public relations. Just make sure it's done discreetly. You don't want to just throw them in your trash right under your circulation desk. They'll think they just fell by accident and pull them out. You don't want to have an awkward conversation in the hallway with somebody as they're, passing the trash and see your books in there.
I just had a bunch of Elephant and Piggy books that I had to go through, and I took the ones that were like in terrible condition, and some of them even got wet. But I also served preschool, so I made a bunch of like flannel boards out of the Elephant and Piggy book things, like not flannel but magnetic. But I used those, I like cut around the pictures and like did that kind of stuff. And then some of the students saw me doing that too. So I gave them I have like a stack of books now that they're like collaging with that have like gross stuff on them or whatever. And I'll take the gross stuff on, but I've weeded those. So that's like another little recycling thing that like I didn't have to like make it into a beautiful project. They were just thrilled to use the characters and like make their own little books and things.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh gosh, or even if it was a page and then they could trace, like if they put thin paper. they could be using it because they
Yeah,
love
they were like drawing them and they were doing like speech bubbles. There were like a lot of really cool things happening and I was like, this is sort of fun, So it was, and I didn't have to do anything. I just put them out and they could like do whatever they wanted with it. So that made me feel a lot better about some of those favorite books that had just been like in the wrong place at the wrong time in book bags.
That is excellent. I like that a lot, Erin. If you have any pictures, send them if you don't mind. I'd love to see them. Okay, how do you guys feel about weeding? Hopefully it's not overwhelmed. I mean, if you do, that's okay. How about a one-word emotional check? I feel like it's COVID all over. How do you feel hearing about weeding now? Melinda, you got one word for me?
Yeah, necessary.
Oh, all right, that's okay, necessary. If those of you who are in Zoom land want to put a one-word feeling after hearing all this about weeding.
That wasn't a feeling.
Okay. No, I mean, but I liked necessary, that's okay, one word. Informed from Janessa, validated from Erin. Andrea is inspired, she's inspiring. And Katie, open space. And it's okay, you can say overwhelmed, you can say clueless, or, but if you at least walk out of here with some knowledge, then I've at least done my job. What you do with it is entirely up to you, because I know it's work. But it is work that can, happen without a huge burden, if you just think about it every so often. Well, I'm moving on to item status types. Item status types, we've been throwing them around, but I know we have newer folks in our libraries, so just to clarify what some of these stand for, that during the inventory process, or during this weeding, or using global item modify, you can pick the status of a discard. And that's where the staff, you're using whatever method to have a book removed. So there is a set items to discard report. I convert the discard. This is something that I do for you. And the items were selected based maybe on their location, catalog, call number, the characteristics. And, I don't pick those. You do that part. I'm just getting them out of the system. But in the speaker notes, those steps 6 and 7 in the inventory process is taking anything that was changed to missing, it'll change it to discard. I could also change items with a location of lost claim or lost assumed or to discard, and then discard a full collection or a portion of a collection. So let's say you no longer have magazines. I went through this recently, just a year or two ago, with Worcester High School. They're like, we don't have periodicals. So, that's a mass discard of items. Holds, that's another status. So set by you, or even a patron if you have holds turned on your online library collection. So it says, hey, this book shouldn't get checked back out because we're reserving it for somebody else. They are next in line. So that's what our hold represents. Transit, so that's an item goes in transit. Workflows creates a transit record for each item that's going to another library. So I was just with Janessa recently at Cornerstone Elementary in Worcester, and I even needed a little help there and sent her some videos. InfoOhio has great resources on how to transit, because they have their, I guess, van, if you would call it, for their district mail, and they'll take books from one library to the other. So they do transits. So The transit record is linked to the item. It stores information such as which library the item came from, the library where it's going, and the reason it was put into transit. And then it'll have a date and time put with it. And the workstation lets you know when the item's in transit. So you have in workflows that special circulation. I'll pull this up. Special circulation functions. We see pending transits and received. Here's pending transit, and I don't have any, but I could pick another library. My training library probably, there we go. I have one sitting here, and it was sent on the 9th. Whew, it's been sitting there for a while. And so if this was my library, I would select it and then I would receive it. So my account is not for this building, so I cannot hit receive, but receive is at the bottom if it was one you have pending. So those are the first 3 statuses. Let's look at 3 more. These are all focusing on lost claim. So we have, like, what report can I use to automatically mark items as lost? Well, there's a report called the Assumed Lost Report. And it can be set up to run periodically and mark items as assumed lost after a certain number of days the item is overdue. The item remains charged to the user, and the item's location is changed to lost assumed. And then if you want to know how do you mark an item as lost if the item is charged to missing, I have those steps down in the speaker notes. I was going to demo it, but I don't think we'll have the time. We only have 10 minutes. And even though we're really close, I want to make sure if you needed to ask a question, you had the time. So you could walk through that, and lost is just saying, whoosh, it can't be found, and it got checked out to missing. Look at the slide, and you'll see on left, the bullet says, lost claim, remains on the user's charge list. So it connects the user still. The lost on the right, that bullet says it is not associated with the actual user. That's the big difference there. And I have, if you're ever wondering, because I have one ticket waiting with the district, she's cleaning it up. But she reported in and she said, hey, I still have old kids on my list. Like, they're not in my building anymore. They've moved on. Why are they still there? Well, when I ran them, I saw they have items checked out. Well, they're still associated with them. Even if they say lost, even if they say they're checked out or overdue, it's still connected to them. That kid will never drop off the system. And so that's why you're going to see those old names. So if you have that happening, you might need to look into changing the status to lost, or you got to just basically settle those, because those kids will always be in that system. I don't care if it's been 10 years. If you don't resolve that status of that item and pull it, and basically you're going to check it out to the missing user, which, if you didn't realize, by setting an item to missing, there in the system is a user called missing. And that way it pulls it away from the kid. And then, because that kid has been expired, the next time in the summer when I run update to the patrons, poof, all those kids with nothing connected to them will all finally disappear. And I think that's the case for your laptops.
Yes.
Keep those kids hanging on.
That's right.
So that's why I keep getting after Melinda, cleaning up devices. Okay. Item status is the last 3. There's one more after, but we are on to missing. So there it is. If you set an item missing, and it could happen during the inventory process, you might not have physically clicked and made them missing, but that could be set. The missing wizard is a report you run, also prior to doing inventory. So normally you should be able to see this list, but you decide that an item should be marked as missing if the item can't be found, when the item's been charged to a patron and is long overdue, And I could actually run a script for you guys. I've done that recently for a few of you where it's called Discharge Long Overdues, I believe. And that's the idea, basically. That because it's been 3 years, or you can go back 1 school year, and you're like, you know what, these kids are gone. They're not bringing these books back. And you feel like, all right, we've had a full school year, and they are not found in any of the classrooms. No teachers have brought them back to me. You're going to have to just call it what it is. And then rather than you have to sit there and like pick every kid and go try and find, I can run a script that says, all right, based on the date of July 1st, 2024 and older, I can set all those, and I can choose. It's between you and me. We can say, all right, we're going to set them to discharge. We're going to set them, discard, or we could set them to lost. We can pick. I have 3 choices: discard, missing, or lost. And then in our chat, Roseanne writes, so to do that, remove items from kids long ago, and to change them to missing, do you check the item in first? Yeah. Well, Lori, if Lori's still with us here, she might have a better. I would probably check it in and then check it out to missing.
Yeah. Just check it in and then check it out to
Oh, good. I got that one right. Thank you, Lori. Just sometimes I'm like, I don't know, the way I would do things isn't necessarily the right way or formal way, or I might do it a long, extra step way. So I'm glad Lori had the same answer there. So missing. You know what though too, when you're marking that item as missing, it indicates it's not lost anymore. We just know it's not there. And then when you set that status to missing, it alerts anybody out there.
Can I interrupt for a minute? Hi, it's Katie.
Yeah, hi Katie.
I think that you have to check the item in, because if you can't mark really it missing, just missing when it's still on their account. It'll only let you put that they have lost it. I think if you want to remove it from the catalog, you have to check it in from their account first.
Yeah, there's no skipping the line, I guess. Yeah. Unless I ran that.
I'm just going to add 2 other things, though, if I may.
Please.
I'm in a high school, so my students are capable, but I usually, once I run the shelf list for polls, like I decide what's going to be pulled, I will highlight, because you're not going to pull all of those books. You're going to, as a librarian, you're going to determine, yes, it's older, but I still want to keep it because your collection. And then I just have them pull them onto a cart, and then I go through that cart. And I set up global modify, and then I kind of get them started. And if we have stacks of books, I let them change the location. I set them up. And then I also let them do all the marking off afterwards. If you have volunteers that can help you, if it's a big project. And then last year, I did a project with our DECA students for business and marketing, and I pitched to them that we would read 500 books and do a free book fair. And so we did. They worked on me with the marketing, and I used a small part of my budget for, how book fairs have like little giveaway things like trinkets. And we have about 900 students, and in 2 days, we gave away like 450 books, and students were only allowed to take a maximum of 3. And that's how many books they took in 2 days. So I read an article about doing free book fairs. It kind of levels the playing field between the haves and the have-nots. Everybody can come and get something, and it was really successful. And they even took that to a competition. That's it. That's all my stuff. That's all my advice.
I love it. Yeah, our 2 career centers. Yeah, they could do that. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the competitions they go to.
Oh, yeah.
It's just failing me.
Right,
I'm out of brain power
right.
at this point. Shadow, that's really, you're trying to hide it. So when it's marked missing, it gets shadowed, but you can also shadow items as well. That way they aren't trying to check out something that, maybe you're getting ahead of, you're cataloging, you're like, oh, these aren't here yet, but they're in the system. Well, shadow them so people don't see them. And that last one, that was weeded. We talked about that. The only difference is from discard is that it begins with a W. But I put in there, in our speaker notes, there is the run OH item count in case you're trying to track what you've removed. So I would run your item count prior to your weeding. So maybe you do at the beginning of the school year one time. That gives you a nice list of your numbers, and then run it later after. And that way you have a flat raw number that just says, all right, now you have this number. You do the math, subtract your start from your end number, and then you can show quickly, hey, these are the numbers of books that have left the system this year. So I appreciate your feedback. It is, at least on my clock, 2:59, and we are done on time. But I am still here in case anybody else wants to chip something in. I appreciate Lori helping every time. I was so glad we were able to get you in there to be part of our class today. So thanks for your help.